Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Wednesday, November 13th. Over the last 30 days, again, precipitation has just remained over the northern areas of the Great Basin, with very dry conditions over western and southern Nevada into the Arizona Strip and southern Utah. However, again, even this precipitation in the far north has been well below normal for the time of year. We have had no real recent snowfall over the last 72 hours, with the exception of parts of far western Wyoming, but obviously you can see most of the snowfall has remained north into Montana, northern Idaho, and central and eastern Wyoming. The snow depth is in the picture on the right, showing mainly snow depth across Idaho, western Wyoming, into northern Utah. And looking at how these conditions relate to normal, you can see right now the snowpack is just below normal over the northern areas of the Great Basin and well below normal or non-existent over western and southern areas of the Great Basin due to how dry it's been. We still don't have any significant drought concerns across the Great Basin. We have seen cooler temperatures across the area, but again, still the drier side of the basin will be over western and southern areas. We have high pressure dominating the Great Basin today, so generally clear skies, sunny weather, and warm conditions with light winds. Those conditions will carry on through the rest of today with poor dispersion in most areas. We do have some increased northwesterly flow across parts of the higher terrain of Utah and into western Wyoming, so we are seeing better dispersion in those areas. Looking at the transport winds, you can see how those winds are a little breezier over the northern and central Utah mountains up into Wyoming as that cold front moves off to the east. Looking at mixing heights, generally in the low to moderate range across the Great Basin. As we move into Thursday, that ridge of high pressure moves eastward over the eastern half of the basin, and we do have a trough of low pressure moving into western areas. We may see a slight increase in winds in the Sierra into northern California, but for the most part, still lighter winds across the Great Basin with poor dispersion, although we may have some cloud cover moving over northern areas on Thursday. Again, winds remain fairly light with the exception of in the higher Sierra. You can see how those winds are gusting between about 20 and 30 miles per hour. Mixing heights will remain on the lower side across the area. On Friday, we have a cold front sweeping by the northern areas. We may see some precipitation across parts of Idaho into western Wyoming and northern Utah as we go Friday into the early part of the weekend. Otherwise, dry conditions remain over southern and western areas. And as this trough moves through, that will increase the dispersion over central and northern areas of the Great Basin. Winds will remain fairly light, but we will see some moderate winds as that front moves through across Idaho, Wyoming, and into the higher terrain of Utah. And mixing heights will also be on the rise, generally in the moderate range. Looking at the forecast clearing index for Utah for today, with those increased winds in the central mountains, you can see how those clearing indices are quite a bit higher, but definitely low in the valleys of western and eastern Utah. Clearing indices go down on Thursday as those winds decrease, but still remain in the moderate range in the higher terrain, and then increase again on Friday as that next front approaches the area. The only precipitation we will see over the next few days again is in the far north over parts of Idaho, western Wyoming, but that could dip down further south into northern Utah as we move into next week. On Saturday, that cold front now moves well to the east over the central plains into the eastern side of the Rockies. So we will see north to northwest flow on the backside of that front over the eastern half of the Great Basin, and that will give us that better dispersion across much of Utah, western Wyoming, eastern Idaho, and down into the Arizona Strip and southern Nevada. So those burning conditions going on over the eastern half of the Great Basin, we'll see a little bit better dispersion as we move later this week and into the weekend. On Sunday, that ridge of high pressure rebuilds, so generally lighter winds with the exception of some northerly winds over far eastern Utah. So dispersion will be going down as we move later in the weekend. But as we move into next week, we will see another cold front start to approach the Pacific Northwest. Winds will remain fairly light on Monday with maybe just an increase in clouds over central Idaho, but for the most part, light winds and poor dispersion. Temperatures will cool this weekend, but will still be right around normal, so the cool down we will see will just take our temperatures down from the far above normal we've been seeing recently. However, as we move towards Tuesday and Wednesday, we will see a colder system move through the Great Basin, so we will see a better chance of precipitation over the northern half of the Great Basin as we move into Tuesday. Maybe even parts of southern Utah might see some precipitation. We will also see winds increase as this front approaches and moves through, so dispersion will improve on Tuesday and again on Wednesday. We don't see any precipitation on days 4 and 5, but this really only takes us through Monday night next week. The next precipitation that may dip further south into the basin will occur on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, this next system moving in next week will bring a pattern change to the Great Basin. So we will see temperatures cooling and also a better chance of precipitation, especially over the eastern half of the Great Basin. This is again November 20th through 28th. But even through the last 2 weeks of November, we will see systems periodically move through the Great Basin every 4 to 5 days, and that will bring some chances of cooler temperatures, at least some cloud cover, and some precipitation to many areas of the Great Basin. So again, that pattern will be changing starting next week. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Friday for the latest updates.